Welcome back. It's Breakfast Central. The Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, FCCPC, has rolled out regulations to curb harassment, data breaches, and other unethical practices by digital lenders in Nigeria. Now, this was disclosed in a statement signed by the FCCPC's Director of Corporate Affairs, Ondaje Ijagu, which quoted the Commission's Executive Vice Chairman and Chief Executive Officer, Tunji Bello, as unveiling the new framework in Abuja on Wednesday. For too long, it says, Nigerians have endured harassment, data breaches, and unethical practices by unregulated digital lenders, end of quote.
The statement noted that the Digital Electronic Online or Non-Traditional Consumer Lending Regulations, DEON Consumer Lending Regulation 2025, took effect on the 21st of July, made pursuant to Section 17, 18, and 163 of the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Act 2018. The rules introduce a comprehensive framework to safeguard consumers in Nigeria's fast-growing digital credit market, from 100 million naira fines to mandatory registration and bans on automatic lending. The FCCPC is drawing a hard line, but will it be enough to protect borrowers and clean up the sector? We'll go into the conversation proper, but first, let's take a look at this report.
A friend introduced me to the loan, that I can get a loan, so from there, I can survive with it, not knowing that it will lead me to where I am.
The first port of call for low-income earners, who are predominantly the most affected, is often no longer a bank or a family member. It's right here on their phones. They are called digital loan apps, promising instant cash with just a few steps, but sadly has now become a nightmare.
In fact, I was thinking about committing suicide, but I looked at my children. I said, if I kill myself, nobody is going to look at these children. Victims
are trapped. Lenders do not care. They just want their money with interest.
This experience is terrible, I tell you. It's very terrible. In fact, it is an instant help, and after that, now wahala.
The Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, in its recent release on X, has promised to periodically monitor interest rates of loan apps to protect customers' interest and ensure rates are not exploitative. Take, for instance, a borrower who collects just 10,000 naira. Within 1 week, they're expected to repay 12,500 naira. That's a 25% interest in only 7 days. If you fail to pay and roll it over monthly, that's more than 100% interest in 4 weeks. In another case, a loan of 50,000 naira comes with a 30% interest plus hidden fees. By the end of 2 weeks, the borrower must return 70,000 naira, losing almost half the borrowed amount to interest alone. And for those who cannot meet the deadline, harassment is the next step.
You are the one that is making it difficult for people that are borrowing, unable to pay.
Ola, a single mother of 3 who has had a fair share of vicious attacks from these loan sharks, had to relocate to Lagos State for a possible fresh start. Ola has lost count of apps she's borrowed from, with over 200,000 naira to pay back. She wished she could turn back the hands of time.
So they were looking for me with police, so I ran away. Well, coming from Ogun State, coming down to Lagos, you know, when I'm thinking about how I left home because of loan, I was seriously depressed. I was seriously depressed because at the time I was thinking of just committing suicide. Maybe that would just sort everything. But when I remember, I have 3 children. And my husband said he's not aware of the loan, that I cannot pay. So what will I do? And I have to feed my children. So that was when I changed my thoughts.
Victims who most likely receive messages like these often end up in bad states and, in extreme cases, commit suicide.
They do disturb. That it gets to a point, it gets to a time that I have to be blocking all their numbers. Anytime they call, I'll block it. They'll use another number again, I'll block it. They'll use another number again, I'll block it.
Mental health advocates warn sustained shame and fear can trigger depression and suicidal thoughts and urge immediate support when harassment escalates.
You may want to work with a financial advisor or use budgeting apps to break your debt into manageable chunks. Even paying a little every month or every week as you have access to funds can help. then of course you need to set mental boundaries around finances or around money. You need to avoid borrowing more. You need to avoid buying the things that you don't need, and you need to avoid trying to be like the Joneses. And of course, avoid checking your balance, obsessing over what you owe, because the more you think about it, the more you continue to drown in debt. You must also prioritize self-care.
The Apex Bank has repeatedly cautioned borrowers to avoid obtaining loans from these apps to avoid running into financial difficulties, as many of these unlicensed loan apps are illegal financial entities. In 2023, FCCPC led a joint task force with EFCC, ICPC, NITDA, and the CBN to clamp down on these predatory loan apps.
Any of my friend or my family to even collect loan now, anything loan, I don't have anything to do with it again. No.
Regulators insist that harassment is a violation. If you get such threats, document them and file a report immediately, as no debt is worth a life. In Lagos for News Central, Victor Mbadike.
Well, very detailed and heart-wrenching report of the realities of people who have had to be at the receiving end of these loan sharks. Joining us for this discussion is an economist. He's been here before, you see him, and today he'll be sharing his thoughts on this story as well as the way forward. We're talking about Mr. Segun Sopitan. Thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
I think that report has put some sort of a dampener on the, the conversation today. But let's first of all get your reaction to that video.
It's heartbreaking, to see the kind of damage that these guys are doing and can do to the lives of people that are really vulnerable and struggling to just make ends meet. It's very, very depressing, I think is the word, to hear people talking about suicide, to hear people talking about shame and inability to move on with life and face society, and all of that. It's a good thing that something is being done about it. However, I think we also need to look at the flip side, because there is a flip side to this conversation. I've been a banker of many years, and I do know that as a people, Nigerians, we've got loans are generally seen as giveaway. And people have this predisposition to think that once I've taken a loan, it's in my hand. And therefore, it's only when pressure is applied in many cases before people do pay, I am not necessarily holding brief for these loan sharks, and we'll come back to them, but I think that we do need to clean up our act as a people in knowing that there are consequences for bad behavior, and taking somebody's money without paying back is bad behavior. If you've taken a loan, have a plan to pay it back, intend to pay it back. And this cuts across the entire society, not just the poor people. I've also had, the opportunity to work with certain people in very, very high places, and I know that people do take loans without the intention of paying back. As in, from the moment that they are filling the application, they're already saying, to their associates and their colleagues and their, staff, this loan, they will hear it, I'm not going to pay back. So there's that as well, and we must address that, because apart from the loan sharks, even traditional banks, commercial banks, microfinance banks struggle from non-performing loans, and it's something that we do need to do something about. Fortunately, the credit bureau system in Nigeria is maturing, and it's becoming increasingly difficult to borrow money from proper lending institutions. If you are a serial defaulter, your name will be on some credit bureau register somewhere, and they will throw it in your face. Sorry, we can't give you this money. Your name is in this, your name is in this. They will reel out the names of the companies you borrowed from and how much you borrowed and how you didn't pay back. So we're getting there. So I think on the side of Nigerians, we need to do better. But then, if we come back to these guys, it's a can of worms. Something has to be done about this.
It's really sad, but I'm also going to I want you to talk on the regulations. I like the fact that the FCCPC is trying to ensure that the regulations will be deeply looked into, and then fines from 100 million naira. How can Nigerians detect the right money lenders? Because they seem to be so many now. If you just go on Google and type you would find, it seems like someone is in
don't
his
even need to
bedroom.
go on Google.
Yeah,
Once you're watching
it comes to you.
Yeah, it just comes.
they're
It's like somebody's in his
everywhere.
bedroom and they're just like three of us, we just say, let's start giving people
In your
money.
face.
If they don't pay, we threaten them and so on. How can they curb these from happening?
I think the first thing that Nigerians must understand is just talking about identifying. You know, the first thing is, look, if you want to borrow money, if you need money, quick loan. We call it in the finance world, we call it hot money. And there's a reason it's called hot money. It's hot.
Hot.
It will give you
So you
heat.
get it hot.
You will get hot, you know, and maybe we can also do a bit of a pun and say it is also hurt money, because it will hurt you.
So H-O-T, hot, then
and H-U-R-T. It will hurt you eventually in terms of excessive interest payments, in terms of a loss of peace of mind, in terms of the practices that these people will go into if you default. Even in some cases, as we've heard, people don't even default and they get into trouble.
Yeah.
Right? So I think avoiding hot money is a big deal. You just have to. Now, how do you identify them? First of all, the traditional lenders, the people who are properly regulated, are measured in their approach to their marketing efforts. And you will not find them throwing, so you won't find, I can't mention, I understand the rules of your business, so I can't mention corporate names on air, but the major money, digital banks, mobile money operators and all of that, they do lend, but you won't find them throwing loans in your face. The microfinance banks lend, but you won't find them advertising and pushing this narrative. So if you are seeing somebody that is aggressively putting money in your face and saying, come and borrow, come and borrow, come and borrow, run. Run, it's a trap. Because now it's beginning to look like it's actually a racket and a criminal enterprise where people are giving money, you lure people into taking money from you, and then you compel them to pay multiples of that money beyond what ordinary interest rates would normally have accounted for. So I think people need to be smart about their financial habits before we even go into personal finance, you know, saving culture, cutting your coat according to your cloth, not even your size, you know, and all of that. Just avoid these people. There are a lot of them, with all due apologies to the honest ones among them, a lot of them are criminals.
Right. So now, how well do you think that, because you've mentioned that a lot of them are criminals, there's legislation, we're seeing regulation being put in place to check them. Is this enough?
I think it's a start. It has to start from there. You have to have some sort of guardrails and protections for innocent, well-meaning, honest Nigerians who just need a little help every now and then. Regulation is very important, and actually the reason this has happened is that I think that the central bank failed in its obligation, because they are the ones that regulate the finance sector, and whether it's borrowing or deposit taking, it's the responsibility of the CBN to regulate. They've got a department that they call the other financial institutions department. Those ones are the ones that are responsible for the non-bank institutions, finance houses and all of that, and they do give licenses. How do these guys, you know, go on the road, so to speak, and operate, and the CBN is not immediately standing up to slam the hammer on them? How is it happening? You know, even if you say that some of them don't have offices, they have an IP address. It's a digital, it's as physical as this building we're sitting in, these IP addresses. You can actually track people down to where those IP addresses are emanating from. Why is the CBN not doing anything? So it's a very good thing that the FCCPC,
yeah.
The name always confuses me. The acronym. You know, it's a beautiful thing that they've stepped in now. Is it enough? I don't think so. I think that it's a cancer, and it may have metastasized to the point where reeling it in will take a lot of effort. So I would also say to Nigerians that they need to know their rights. You need to know your rights. You know, if somebody is sharing your picture all over the place and calling you a kidnapper or a rapist, report to the police. It's also important. I think this is critical, because a lot of Nigerians don't know this. A loan is not a criminal offense. Please take note. It's not a criminal offense to take a loan. It's a commercial transaction. Now, if you have somebody take a check from you as a post-dated check as collateral, the intention is to criminalize it by presenting the check, even though they know you don't have money there. So the check can bounce, and then they can take you to FCC depending on the amount, or to, you know, whatever law enforcement agency is responsible for that level of money. So bear in mind that in most cases, a loan is a commercial transaction. Nobody can threaten you with police or jail because of loan. So a lot of people see those messages and they panic. Calm down. Nobody can do you anything. They can't do anything to anybody because it's not a crime to take a loan. You know, so, and these guys know this, and that's why they have now resorted to all sorts of tactics. I have a friend of mine. This is a one-on-one. I have the message on my phone. I can show it to you right now. I got a message from some random number that's saying to me that I will not mention the person's name. It says, so-and-so currently living with kidney cancer and HIV/AIDS. Please help my life with any amount for treatment. And they put an account number and the name of a bank for me to send money. This person happens to be a very close friend, a female. So I call her and say, madam, what is going on? You must have taken money from someone. Because I know, I mean, it's somebody I see regularly. I know she doesn't have HIV, she doesn't have cancer, she doesn't have kidney. I see her regularly. You know, this is a real life story that happened to me and my friend. You know, so these are the tactics that these people...
Having collected
Yes, she said so. In fact, they had sent this same message to so many people. And this person is not a poor person. She just ran into a slight tight thing and she fell for the temptation. You know, these apps are in your face. So she just, I need 100,000 naira. Small money, 100,000 naira. And they ruined her reputation.
Small money, big damage.
Big, huge damage.
You call it hot money.
And hurt money.
And in the words of Ira Star, look what a hot money can do. We'll go on a break now. When we come back, we'll continue with the conversation. Stay with us.
Welcome back. We're still looking at the FCCPC's latest remark and updates, especially in curbing loan shark operators, those who loan money or give you money or borrow you money, as it were, and then threaten your life. And we're looking at the possibilities of managing this. We do have a renowned economist who's here with us, Mr. Segun Sopitan, who has indeed highlighted some of these challenges. But I'd like us to look at just another aspect very quickly. Let's look at the aspect of data breach and the recent data protection laws. It is said that most Nigerians don't read through these laws when they are being sent. And you know what we do now? They just scroll down and then we say, just click, accept. And some mention that inside that agreement, there's a clause there that says that they would gain access to your data, your number. Now, from the data protection laws and what these loan sharks do by gaining access to that data, which credibly seems like you've given them access by consenting, does it still give them the right to broadcast these, demeaning messages to people saying, oh, you were spotted, you're a thief, you're a criminal, we'll expose you, and so on and so forth?
It's a complete break of, they're breaking the laws of, the NDPR. We've got the NDPR, which is a domestication of the GDPR. And those regulations protect people's data and protect their privacy. And even when I give you access to my data, there's a limit to the things that you can do with it. You can't just go to the public unless I give you express permission. Now, if the argument is that, in the process of applying for the loan, you've ticked yes to a number of things that you didn't even pay attention to, and therefore, you've signed away your data privacy rights. I know, almost, I won't say for a fact, but there's strong legal opinion that such agreements are not enforceable in court. If you want to bind me to an agreement, it is your responsibility to ensure that I understand what I'm signing, that I've seen it and I understand. So I am aware, for example, that there is a class action, a series of class action suits that I'm also involved in, taking some banks to court for sending unsolicited messages, literally spamming people with all sorts of messages, marketing different products, and the excuse they give is in the account opening form, you've ticked off somewhere, in that fine print that nobody reads, you've ticked off somewhere that, yes, they can send messages to you and all of that. And my lawyer has said very clearly, no, they can't do that. They have to draw your attention to that thing and ensure that you understand it as you're signing. Now, it's debatable, and the matter is in court, and we'll see how it works out, But the person that is working on it is a son, and he has also gotten a lot of his colleagues to say, look, what do you think? And the consensus is that no, these people don't have a right to your data to use it anyhow, just because you ticked off on some very anonymous, very small fine print, you know. So I think we'll have to wait to see how that plays out. But talking about these guys, I would also like to advise Nigerians that they need to understand that they do have rights, and I would suggest people to file reports with the police. When these things happen, it's harassment, and a lot of these actions are criminal in nature. In fact, some of these actions are bordering on some sort of advance fee fraud, and you know, where you are making false promises, you know, to take money from people with the intention of defrauding them in the end. So you can report to the police if you get, you know, your phone number or your face flying around somewhere. Take that number, go to the police station, file a report. And if it comes to it, maybe we need to start thinking and advising people to look at class action. There has to be consequences for these things. So people might want to come together and file class action suits against one or two of these people. You know, maybe then they'll begin to borrow themselves some brain.
Okay, I think my final question would be your tips. I know you had touched lightly on this, but I want us to expand on it a little further on how people can avoid getting themselves into the situations. Yes, there are situations that life has happened to you, it's beyond your control, you're boxed in a corner. So what measures do we need to put in place to ensure that we can do everything within our power to not find ourselves in this situation? That's one. And then the other angle will be, I don't know, people who would maybe do this for sports. I remember that when the mobile networks, I don't know if they still borrow people money. There are people who plan to port. They'll borrow money from one mobile network and port because they're trying to teach them a lesson.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if that happens with the loan sharks. I would assume that now because we have the BVN, you can't
NIN.
do such a silly thing. So if it's possible, I mean, if that is possible for people to do, maybe speak to that as well.
People actually do that. People do borrow money from these loan sharks, and somebody has said it's poetic justice serves them right because people do borrow money from them with the very deliberate intention of not paying back. And they know that at the end of the day, all those messages are just threats. So some of them will say, Shebi is somebody that has shame that you want to shame. Me, I don't have shame. I will take your money and I will not pay back. You can't shame the shameless. So there are people that do game that system. And I think that they also need to be, you know, reined in and called to order because they are doing damage to the system. No economy anywhere in the world can survive, can thrive and grow without consumer credit.
Right.
So I was actually happy when this thing, you know, these consumer lending organizations, digital banks, you know, and all that started. But now it's being abused and we're doing damage to ourselves and our economy. On the other points that you spoke about, first of all, it's very important that people understand that no matter how difficult life is, no matter how difficult the circumstances and situations are, you need to be very intentional about managing your finances. Look, we put ourselves under pressure too much in this country. I mean, people borrow money for ashwebi, you know? I mean, it's absolutely, look, I am speaking on a public platform. People that know me are listening to this. When I buried my dad last year, we did not have a reception. We did not have a reception because I just told my siblings, they were, oh, we have to have a party, that's how things are done. I said, no, we don't. Look, when we did the budget, it was just, I just couldn't justify to myself that we'll spend that amount of money.
Just for one.
For a reception, one go. The man is gone. We are missing him. Let us honor his memory and do things and say things, you know, let people come and talk about the impact he has had on, you know, not to take ashwebi. So we didn't take ashwebi and we didn't have a reception. We could have afforded it. It's not that we couldn't have afforded it. I just said, no, this is not the way to do things. You know, so Nigerians need to understand that we put pressure on ourselves unnecessarily because of certain cultural norms, you know, and societal values and all of that. Now, having said that, it's also important for people to know that if you're a low-income earner, recognize it. Don't lie to yourself. Recognize it and live within your means and try to save. People say it's impossible to save. I know it's hard. I know, honestly, it's very hard.
Yeah.
But look, if it is only 1,000 naira you're able to set aside in a week, trust me, if you are consistent with it, you will also see. I know it's difficult, you know, but I think it's something that we need to keep preaching to ourselves so that people that can at least find a way to muster that muscle and do it will do it, and they'll save themselves from some of this embarrassment, you know. And I could go on and on with personal finance tips and all of that, but there's so much to be said about that. At the end of the day, avoid hot money. If there's any tip that I want to resonate in people's mind from this conversation is avoid hot money. If they're offering you money and you can get it in 2 hours, it's hot money. They haven't done due diligence. And you know, it means that they're giving you the money. They know there's something at the back of their mind that is giving them the assurance, confidence to give money to a total stranger within 2 hours. They know that there's something they're going to do, that they will get that money back. So avoid it. You know, if you need money, go to family, go to friends. If you are the type that have borrowed money from all your family and all your friends and there's nowhere to turn to again, then you have a problem that you need to fix yourself.
A borrowing problem.
Yes, you have a borrowing problem that you need to fix yourself. So avoid these people, find friendly lenders. You know, go to a microfinance bank, go through the process. There is no problem that is so urgent that will mean that you need to take money in 2 hours. If the microfinance bank is asking for documentation and it takes them 2 weeks, find a way. Trust me, I've found that people think that they're going to die during the height of that problem, but you won't die. Just go through the process and don't avoid hot money. I think that's the thing I would just like to leave it on. Avoid hot money.
Great tip, Segun Sopitan. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And you know, our hearts really do go out to people who have been on the receiving end of these loan sharks. We hope that this conversation has been able to help and that we don't have to see repeat incidences like this in the nearest future. Joe?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Segun Sopitan, for speaking with us.
Pleasure.